Kevin asked about the story of Abraham and Isaac. If you're not familiar with the story, God calls Abraham to sacrifice his son. This is the son that was born to him in his 90s. Like, he waited for decades for this miraculous conception. Not likely it's going to happen again. So God asked him to kill his own son. And so here's Kevin's question. He's been told that God's voice, God's call will never ask you to do something contrary to what's in the Bible. And here's the answer. God didn't, because there was no Bible. There was no law of Moses. There was no moral code. There was no King David, no Psalm, certainly no Jesus. According to what Abraham knew, especially with his own life experience in Mesopotamia, those pagans over there, they would sacrifice their children to the gods. So this was not out of line from his religious perspective. Now, look, I get it. The law was coming and God is more moral than that. Here's the point. God didn't have him kill his son. He just asked him to sacrifice that which was most valuable to him. So let me give you two clarifying statements that will help with this. First, you will never understand the story of Abraham and Isaac, Genesis 22, until you get to the story of Jesus on the cross in Matthew 26. It's an illustration. It's showing what God was going to do with his son, what very few of us would ever be willing to do with our own sons, even for God, let alone a sinful world. So there is that backdrop that Genesis 22 only makes sense in light of the sacrifice of God and his own son. Second, if you go to Hebrews 11, this is really interesting. There is a statement about Abraham there that Abraham believed in the resurrection when no one had preached resurrection, no one had taught resurrection, certainly no one had experienced resurrection. But he logically concluded that if God gave me this son and said this son was going to be the heir to heirs that are more numerous than the sand of the sea, if it's going to come through Isaac, then God must have a plan of raising him from the dead. So Abraham was not thinking that he was losing his son, but that he was going to give his son up to God and let God bring about a resurrection. Yet again, another clue of the ultimate plan that God has for you and for me. One last PS on this. Aren't you grateful for what is called the Judeo-Christian ethic? Not just the Ten Commandments, but the teachings of Jesus. Our world is in chaos because we are abandoning the revelation of God. And until we get back to what God revealed in his scriptures, we would be in the same boat as Abraham and his relatives, not really knowing right from wrong without God's revelation.